It's my privilege and honor to introduce our guest speaker this morning. So let me call him on up to the stage. Reverend Mark Anthony Lord is an internationally recognized New Era inspirational leader, speaker, author, and teacher. His personal mission, and I love this, is to assist people in awakening to the power of self-love, acceptance, and joy. Would you like a little more joy? We're going to hear more about that today. And just from a personal note, I have to tell you that Reverend Mark has been a true inspiration in my life, in my ministry. I showed up at his Meta Model Conference several years ago, and he totally changed how I do ministry. And it's just a real honor to introduce him as my friend and my mentor. And would you please help me give a warm welcome to Reverend Mark Anthony Lord.
Oh, thank you so much. It's such a joy to be here. Really, I appreciate who you are. I feel the wonderful energy of who you are, and I honor your amazing minister, Reverend Michelle. What a blessing she is to all of you. I know this, yes? Yes. So you're very blessed to have her. So I was raised Catholic. That was fun. Anybody else raised Catholic? A few of us. Oh, the rest of you don't know what you were missing. Good times going to Mass. And my last name is Lord. And my father would do the readings on Sundays. So me and my 4 siblings and my mom would sit in the front row. And I was, 4 or 5 years old, and they would say, "Praise be the Lord," and all those things. And I would feel very honored because I thought they were actually talking about me and my family. I really did. And I would sit there very tall, and I think those people back there, they're coming to worship us. It was such an innocent, wonderful awareness of self, But at the same time, staring at this man that was clearly not happy on the cross, and being told that either, in some ways very clearly, but in other ways just, energetically being told that this guy died for my sins. And the first response in my head was like, well, who asked you to? You sort of get very defensive. Like, it just seems it was 2,000 years ago. I wasn't even here. What did I do? It creates a sort of really intense imprint on the psyche. So if you weren't raised Catholic, you probably have some other kind of intense imprint on the psyche from childhood where there was some idea that God was separate and God was watching and keeping score and had some powers to reward you or punish you. And all of this stuff that was projected upon this thing called God that we were born into, absorbing and beginning to grapple with. And some things we became afraid of, some things we agreed with, some things even at young ages we just knew intuitively couldn't be true about us. But nonetheless, we were born into a culture that was sort of trapped in old era ideas and fears about God, and you who belong to this wonderful New Thought community, you are the people who said, no, thank you. I'm going to find a more loving, generous, inclusive path. So good for you for being here and being a part of that. And I always, when I talk to groups of people, like you in the more conscious New Thought realm, I really am aware that there's a greater responsibility that you hold. And I say that genuinely to say that, you are a part of the leading edge of evolution around accepting a greater love of self, a greater awareness of your oneness with God. There's still, billions of people that are in their own evolution of still being very, very afraid of God or worshiping a fearful God, a punishing God. And you're here beyond that. So you're leading the way energetically. I think that's really beautiful. And there's always more for us to do. There's new horizons. There's new places for us to go. My most recent book is called Thou Shalt Not Suffer. 7 Steps to a Life of Joy. And the original title that I came up with was Thou Shalt Not Suffer, the New Commandment, which I really like very much. But when I presented that to my publisher said, "Who are you to write the next commandment?" To which I said, "The Lord." Right? But he signs the checks, so he got 7 Steps to a Life of Joy, which is totally fine. And the book really came out of me just in the conversations I was having around really becoming aware that we live in a new era. We are in a new time, a new energetic time. So much is possible. Really, higher conversations are being had. Relationships are discovering new subtleties and ways to communicate and connect and be authentic together. There's so much available to us that generations before us didn't have access to. I remember, well, let me tell this correctly. I was told this story. I don't remember well, but I was a very young boy, and I asked my grandmother, who always appeared unhappy to me. And I guess as a little boy, I said to her, "Grandma, are you happy?" And she looked at me and she said, "What is this happy thing? What are you talking about?" And my mother tells me that she never really answered the question. But what I've came to realize later is that it wasn't a question that she asked herself. It actually was a foreign question. She wasn't thinking, am I happy or am I not? She was trying to get the food on the table and raise the kids and do the things that she was to do. It wasn't a question. It was kind of a silly question to her. But it activated something inside of me that became a very important journey that I'm on, that I think we're all on. So this new era allows us to not only have the question, but to find the answer for the question inside ourselves. It's a beautiful time. It really is. And at the same time, we were born in the old era. We were born in the era where we were told to not shine our light too brightly, to play humble and to play small and to put everybody else first, to make sure other people's needs got met. And you know what? Even better off, don't have any needs. It's better for us if you don't have any needs. Right? So we really took to those things, and to be vulnerable in the old era was dangerous. It just was. To be vulnerable, to feel weak, to share your underbelly, if you will, at times meant that you could be attacked. You could be persecuted, made fun of, ridiculed for this. So we were raised in an era that said, really, really protect yourself. This is really what the era said. I'm just going to be straight up about it. What the old era says is, don't be you. Please don't be you. Any part that doesn't match what we're saying here, just please put that away and put up a fake persona. Be whoever you need to be so that everything is okay. Well, that was a big expense. Many of us did that. We chose to put parts of ourselves under the carpet or in the closet. We sliced and diced ourselves so that we could make mom and dad happy, so we could fit in and be okay. Really wise choice, people. Nothing wrong with your choices back then. It was our survival mode. It was what was right for us. But our spiritual practice now becomes releasing the agreements that we made that don't really serve who we are and allowing that authentic self to come out. And it really does require us letting go of our suffering. Suffering is such it's an addiction in much of our culture. It's such an acceptable way to live. Oh, how I suffer, right? You know, you can carry your own cross, and you can have parties where people will come and talk about it. And you can go to coffee with friends and talk about your suffering and how bad that person is and how horrible this is. We build bonds inside of our suffering stories, right? Now, I get that you're more enlightened and not always living there, but let's take a moment and just pretend that, you're willing to look at maybe some ways that still exist inside of us. That's sort of what we're interested in today. Because what I know is that we really can't fully live in the land of joy and keep our suffering. So our spirit is saying, leave your suffering baggage on the other side. But for many of us, I call us the bridge people because we were born in the old era that required suffering. We ushered in the new era, which says no suffering allowed, and we're standing on the bridge in between. Do you ever feel that pull? And every once in a while, when life happens and appears to be happening to us, boy, can we be energetically pulled back into some of our stories, right? So let me take a moment and explain to you what suffering is and isn't, to give you more understanding, because there's some, even that word can drum up a lot of different ideas. So this is how I describe it. Or let me tell you what it isn't. It's a better approach. Suffering is not feelings. Your feelings, you're wired to feel. We all are wired to feel. And in the old era, having too many of any kind of feeling was bad. And for many of us, feeling angry or feeling rage in our bodies was really bad. We would really shove that under the carpet because you ladies wanted to be good little girls. All these things that we were raised inside of. Plus, in our childhood, many of us, anger was used as dangerously. It was used against us or used against somebody else. Like anger caused fights. Anger caused physical harm. Anger really could be scary and painful. So it made sense to really sort of bottle that up or get it out of the way or do whatever and just become really nice people. Right? We're a culture of just really, really nice people. But if you've ever been out on the road for more than a half an hour, I think you will see that might just be a facade. Maybe just a facade. I'm a really bad driver, so I get the opportunity to see lots of you in reaction. So having feelings is not only not suffering, it's important to get us into our new land. It's important to acknowledge that we are angry people, that we have rage in us, but to find the third option of how to use it for transformation. Rumi says, beyond the field of beyond right and wrong, there is a field. I will meet you there. This is what we're looking for. Not anger against ourselves, not anger to attack another, anger used to move us, to move through us and to transform and to let these powerful energy fields be recognized as feelings that are valid and to have them fully. It's really quite beautiful. I always tell the story of the best way to see that is to watch a little 2.5-year-old toddler throw themselves on the ground and have a tantrum. It is really something to watch. It really is. And if you haven't, next time you have the opportunity, please take a front row seat and watch a beautiful expression of a being that doesn't know yet to control and manage its feelings. Flails on the ground from head to toe, the fingers, everything goes into rage. They scream, they yell, the body convulses, and the rage passes through. They get up. And they go take a nap or they go play. They go do whatever they do, right? It's quite beautiful. It really is. But I understand. Now, please don't go out there this afternoon and throw yourself on the ground at Applebee's. And if you do not mention my name because I will deny it. I am not above saying I have no idea who they are. But to find ways to return to the sea, we became what Don Miguel Ruiz says in The Four Agreements, which is a fantastic book. We became domesticated. We became trained and conditioned to lose ourselves, to disconnect from ourselves, and to ignore and to cover up parts of us that were unacceptable. So it was okay for you at 2 years old to have a tantrum, perhaps, but at 4-year-old, not okay. 6-year-old, you should know better. 8 years old, unacceptable. You're going to get in big trouble, right? So these are the conditionings. I reference these, and you relate to these stories in whatever way you do or don't, but we all have our ways that we have not allowed ourselves to fully feel. And feeling brings freedom. It brings freedom. And what I've learned is that if the experience is at level 10, then the feeling needs to be at level 10. So that there's a match that occurs, and then there's the breakthrough. But if the experience was at a level 10 and you only let yourself feel to level 4, You have a gap. And that's the unhealed part. And that's why the story keeps haunting you. It's really just coming back up because it needs to be fully processed. It's why we find ourselves in therapy. It's why we find ourselves doing energetic healing work. All of these things serve us to really get us to the level where the story can be released and we can be set free from it. I love my household because I live in a very conscious household that my husband and I have worked hard to create. And we do things like if he's having an upset or an experience and he'll say, are you available? And if I'm available, I'll say, sure. And I'll sit down and he'll go into expressing his story. And he'll make it really big. I'll say, make it bigger, get it out. Like really, like to witness someone in their full explosion of being, and to really, I'll be honest with you, it's kind of hot. It's good. Telling you, give it a try. Good things come after. But this is what we do. I want to give you a little insight into it. Here's what's interesting, and I've learned all of this through my years of study and deep interest in this, is that when someone's having a full explosion, in my household, they're allowed to use one word. Blah. Blah, blah, blah is all they're allowed to say. Blah, 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 blah. And they can scream it and yell it and do all that they want to do to get it out. But they're only used to, we always like, use your non-words, because I'm going to take it personally. I don't want to take it personally. And I don't know if you're like me, I can only hear you about 4 times before I'm like, okay, let's go. Now it's like, bring it, bitch, right? Or, excuse me. Right? But if you will just express just in blah, 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 and you'll have your explosion, I'm right there with you. And you don't need the words. It's fascinating, and it's beautiful, and it's safer. It's more safe to do that. So I just pass that on to you. You know, if you got a playmate or someone that you can sort of work something out with, try not using words to tell your story, and you'll have more freedom to really express. And because you only have one word to use, you really got to get the energy going and the physicality of it, you know? And then afterwards, I'll complete that because I learned this exercise. I do it often. Then when the sharing is complete, and if it feels right, like he'll sit down and I'll pray for him. But the only word I use is love. Love, love, love. Everyone can pray. You just say the word love. Over and over and over. It's a beautiful way to support each other inside of the healing of who we're here to be. Back to my point, we all have these unexpressed feelings, and we all have these fears that I'm speaking generalities, excuse me. Most of us have these fears that if I really show you who I am, you're going to leave me. The fear of abandonment and being excommunicated is deep in our soul. It scares us so deeply that we are willing to become who we're not just to belong. That's how deep it is. So when you ask me to really be authentic, I need to really know that you mean that and you're not going to leave me, right? This is the evolution. This is what's possible today in the new era. It's been coming for decades. Many people have been leading us here. But the conversations that we're able to have, the authenticity that is wanted to be known inside of us, this is true freedom. This is joy, not suffering. Suffering is not grief. Grief is of God. So if you're in a time of grief, if you're letting someone go, either they have transitioned from their body or they're leaving your life, if you're letting go of a career, you're leaving out of one chapter of life, moving into a new chapter of life. These are times where grief is such a precious thing that we need to go deep down into. It's the dark night of the soul. And our culture doesn't support that. I remember as a kid when my grandmother died and my father was given 3 days off and then back to work. And that was it. 3 days off, over, sorry, probably got a little bouquet of flowers or something, but it was back to work. And that's our culture. So we here in this beautiful community have the opportunity to redefine that and create space. If you're in grief, please hear me. Don't push yourself through and don't make yourself wrong. I hear so many people, I've heard over the years, so many people in grief, isn't this over yet? I'm done with this. And I'm like, apparently not. Apparently not. There's more. to love ourselves so much that we're willing to hold ourselves in grief for as long as it's there. For as long as it's there. So let me explain what suffering is. I'll just give you my own little definition of it. Suffering is any emotion or experience or belief about yourself that is extended past its rightful expiration date. So anything, because everything, we have experiences. It's if it's your turn, it's your turn, right? It's your turn to get sick. It's your turn to go in the dark night of your soul. It's your turn to have a financial crisis. It's your turn when it's your turn. And those experiences come, and then they go, and hopefully we have a spiritual experience from them, and we transform and awaken, and then they're complete, and we grow from them. But when we get stuck inside of it, or we circumvent it or halt it, then we start to move into our suffering patterns. And for many of us, again, because of our domestication, we have a lot of unresolved things that would have, had we been raised in an enlightened communities or enlightened world, would have been done and gone, and you'd be going. So our work is to redo those, to go back and heal those. So again, suffering is any feeling or experience or belief about yourself that is extended beyond its rightful expiration, right? So anyone else besides me have some suffering to take care of? 4 of us, great. The rest of you, just be patient. So let me explain what joy is, because that too is a wonderful word to unpack. We've heard it so often. We love it. We sing about it here. But Brené Brown, in her book, Daring Greatly, says that joy is the most vulnerable emotion. And when I heard that for the first time, I thought, well, that's really interesting. I love that idea. And as I unpacked that idea, I really got to see this make sense, because, joy just might make you go skipping down the street. Joy just might make you be so happy that someone's going to say to you, who do you think you are to be so happy? Right? You're going to bump up against the ceiling of your current family, of your current culture, of your workplace, where you're allowed this much joy, but if you get above here, then you're just kind of weird, right? So you got to be willing to be one of the weird ones. You got to be willing, when something's happening in the world, to reference back to yourself and say, I'm activating my joy here. It's okay. It's okay for you to be joy. Joy is a large vibration that doesn't exclude sadness. It doesn't mean that you're just going to walk around being happy. It means you're going to be authentic. But at the center of who you are, there's a feeling of well-being and peace and spiritual wholeness that really does keep you light, and it keeps you connected to what's true. We need you in the world to be your joy. We need you to access that, to tap into it, to tune into it, and to really keep yourself alive inside of that vibration, where one person awakens to their joy and dares to be it more and more consistently every single day. That one person is transforming everything. And don't think that being joyous and happy means that you're going to just sit at home doing nothing. That's always one of the things I hear. Well, if I'm too happy, then all those bad things are going to keep happening, and I'm going to I'm just supposed to sit home and eat bonbons? I'm like, well, maybe if that's your calling this lifetime. Who am I to say that that's not what you're meant to do? What I do know is that love, joy, these very positive, God-centered vibrations, they actually do move us into action. They do bring us forward to make a difference and contribute in the world, but you do it from a place of wholeness. You do it from a place of love, from a place of being that is so beautiful. And that, Course in Miracles says that love extends forevermore. Anything made from fear actually is ineffective and has an expiration date. So everything that you do from love will extend and extend and extend. Every time you help someone from love, you're actually creating an amazing wave that goes on forever. So, if you're hitting that idea, that ceiling of, well, I just can't be love and joy all day long. I mean, that would be crazy. Well, I say to you, why don't you try it? Try it for a day. Don't argue for your limitations so quickly. Try it for a day, and if that day goes well, maybe try it for day 2. Just sort of see where that might take you. What I've discovered is that It requires some work sometimes, that I've got to get myself centered inside of it when I feel like I don't want to be. But I also realize that I can have a good cry in the center of my joy. I can process a deep, dark emotion sitting in the center of it. It doesn't exclude anything and includes everything. So there's 7 steps in my book on how to get there. And I'll just address one of them that actually I'll go more deeply into at my workshop this afternoon that I really hope you will skip the football game for and come to, because it's really going to be great. You can TiVo the football game. You can't TiVo me. So one of the most important steps is on forgiveness. And I know you've heard that word since we were little, and we hear a lot about it, and I'm sure you practice it a lot here, and I don't mean to imply you don't. But what I've discovered in my own practice and in my own studying of it and teaching of it is that so many really don't understand what it is. They really don't understand what is forgiveness, what's my part, and what isn't my part. So I'll give you a few of those things to take away with you in case you can't join me later today. The first being that you don't do forgiveness. You can't. So I want you to embrace that from a standpoint of, I can't forgive. And people go, aren't you over that story yet? Nope, I can't. I can't do forgiveness. And what I mean by that, more specifically, is that forgiveness is a mystical act that is done unto you. If you're stuck on a ditch on the side of the road 30 feet down, I could stand on the top all day long and go, get yourself out. Come on. You'd be like, I can't climb out of this 30-foot ditch. I need help to climb out. I need someone to throw a rope down so I can get out of this ditch. Forgiveness is like that rope. If you're stuck in a 30-foot deep ditch of your story and your pain, and that's where you are, then you need that golden rope to come down that you can grab and be lifted out of it. To me, that's what forgiveness is. It's a mystical practice that comes into I literally imagine it coming into your psyche and unraveling your stories until they disappear and dissolve. So your part is not to do it. Your part is to ask that it be done. Please hear this. Your part. The Bible always ask. That's what the Bible says, to ask. And Science of Mind is more a declarative kind of approach to prayer and to things. But to me, asking is inherent in a declarative statement. So whatever if you do it like this way or you do it this way, it's asking. It's asking. So you simply say, I ask that forgiveness be done. I ask that forgiveness set me free. That's the request. And that request alone activates the universe. And the universe goes, yay, we're coming. And the forgiveness rescue squad starts coming down to come because you asked, right? The faith of a mustard seed is all we need. You don't need to understand the story. You don't need to dissect it. You don't need to do anything. You just need to ask that forgiveness set you free. And it will be activated. And it will start to do its work. Now, the next part is your part, which is a little more challenging for some of us. But please hear it. The next thing you do is you never tell the story again. Don't talk about it. Don't let it come from your mouth. Now, I'll give you one exception, because I do believe therapy can be a wonderful thing at times. If that story just needs to be told one more time, then you sit down with a minister or a practitioner here or a therapist or someone that's really trusted, and you tell that story one more time. And you go to the depth of it, and you play the victim role all the way until I don't care if you're laying on the ground. You tell that story from that particular vantage point. It happened. It happened. And if a part of you needs to really be witnessed, then get it out. And then make the decision to move on beyond that. Now, which means when you're out to coffee with your friends, when you're hanging out with friends, you don't take them in as hostages, right? You don't get them to agree to your broken-winged little life, right? We're done. We're done playing that. We stay inside the forgiveness game. Now, if the story loops in your head, which it will, If it comes back, don't make yourself wrong. Don't beat yourself up. That simply is a call to activate forgiveness again. So you get back to step one. Stories in my head. Forgiveness set me free. Forgiveness set me free becomes my mantra. I won't entertain the story. I work as hard as I can. Because if you entertain the story for too long, it goes deep and it sets off an emotional bomb. And once the emotional bomb is set off, you're in the fallout. And you just got to wait for the dust to clear, right? And that's kind of what we're addicted to. We're addicted to the emotional bomb going off. But we got to detonate that bomb. we got to get that thought out of our head. Forgiveness set me free. And if there's someone attached, forgiveness set me and this person free. Forgiveness set me and this person free. Free me from this story. It really works over time. And that's something for you to hear. Forgiveness is not a one-time act. Forgiveness is something we do over and over and over until it is done. It's kind of like commitment. I've learned that you make a commitment once and then you recommit. You make a decision to forgive, and then you forgive. You keep yourself going down that path. It's an amazing practice, and I stand here to tell you it works. I have aspects of stories from my past that I don't even think about, that are just drained out of not only my mind, but out of my energetic being. Some really dark stories. I've had some things happen to me that I literally don't ever think about, and I don't feel their influence in my life the way they used to. Some of these stories, when I was living them, made me attract some very interesting people that I dated. I know they're part of God. I got it. But boy, did we do quite a dance together. I don't do those dances anymore. I've got other new dances, but at least they're higher quality dance. Forgiveness works. And this afternoon, I'm going to really take a deep dive into giving you more practice of it, specifically going into areas of your life. So if you've got stories that haunt you, resentments, beliefs about yourself, negative ideas about yourself or other people, these are the things that point to it's time for you to forgive. And this afternoon, we're going to focus on that. I also have my book for sale. If you can't make it this afternoon, it's all in there also. So with that, let us move to some prayer. Take a deep breath. I'd like to invite up our ministers and practitioners. Please come stand here in the front. I'd love to have you here. And, for you community to see, these are just a couple of your ministers, your practitioners who have spent many hours of their time learning how to clear their own consciousness and pray and turn to God so that they can help you do the same thing. So I stand on their shoulders during this time of prayer. So thank you for your support. The rest of you, I invite you to close your eyes and turn within. Please open your hands on your lap so that you can receive. Deep breath. And in this moment, I speak the word of God. God. And I feel it just go through my being as a vibration of light, of joy. It expands beyond my being as I know this as the eternal presence that is, was, and always will be. Inherent inside of all of life is this one source that is beautiful and perfect and eternal. It is the kingdom of all good. And it is here right now. And not only is it here right now, I am that. I am the kingdom of all good, all God. That's what I'm made from. That's all I could ever be. And as I know this to be true for me, I know that this is true for each and every one of us. I don't stand alone in this wholeness, this holiness. This is who and what we are right now. Breathe this truth in. I am the beloved in whom God is well pleased. I am the extension of perfect love, and that's all I will ever be. And everything that is unlike this truth is nothing. It is a dream of separation. And as soon as you wake up from the dream, everything that has been made from that false idea, from fear, disappears. Turn the light on and the darkness is gone. So in this moment, this prayer turns the light on. We turn the light on in our hearts. that it may express love freely and fully for ourselves. We turn the light on in our minds that loving, positive thoughts may be the norm. We turn the light on as we call forth forgiveness. I ask that forgiveness set each one of us free today, free from the stories of the past, free from repeating lack and limitation. Forgiveness set us free from holding ourselves and other people hostage. Forgiveness set us free from the small ideas about ourselves, from the fear of shining our light. Bust open the ceiling that we have placed upon ourselves. Forgiveness set us free that we may walk in the love that we are, become the love that we are, share the love that we are, and become a part of the many that are called to be the healing presence in this consciousness, in this dimension of being that we are having our experience in. Take a deep breath. Repeat after me. I ask that forgiveness set me free. I ask that forgiveness set me free. I ask that forgiveness set me free. Deep breath. Say yes. Say yes. Say yes. Such a beautiful word. Yes, the agreement is activated. This prayer is fulfilled. That's really awesome. This prayer is fulfilled. We have just co-created a new consciousness of freedom and forgiveness. And inside of this new expansion, there's so many miracles available to us that we couldn't see prior. Thank you, sweet Spirit, for all the miracles that are now here. We say yes to all of them. Ease and grace, love and flow, prosperity, the goodness that is here, we now have space for. I welcome it. I say yes to it. In great gratitude for the fulfillment of this prayer, I release it now into the action of the law. This prayer is fulfilled. And together we say, and so it is. And so it shall be. Amen.